can't get across. It's freezing. I'm freezing. I run back to my truck, jump in, I'm going like 100 miles an hour. I blew a red light. I go around, all across the river, go around into the cemetery, go in, and I pull up, and all I see is, a white, like a blob of feathers, and I just see a big wing going doosh, doosh, just smacking the living shit out of my bird. And I go over there, and she's bleeding from her nose, from her mouth, and she's just staring blankly ahead with both feet on the goose's like face, like in the eye, and like, she like, it was done. Like, the goose was gonna die.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you guys about Desert Fox Golf. I've recently partnered up with them, and they have some awesome products that you definitely want to check out. They have something called the Phone Caddy, which is the best phone holder in golf. It comes in many different colors, and they even have ones with funny sayings on it, like, I work to support my golf habit, and it takes a lot of balls to play like me. If you are like me and like to use a golf app while you're playing, then this is the thing for you, because it holds your phone in a convenient location right on the golf cart. They even have a cigar holder attachment for it. One of my favorite things is their drink aid tumblers. They have these awesome 17-ounce stainless tumblers with a screw-on lid to hold your favorite beverage while playing around a golf. They have different versions, from the classic swing aid to nurse aid, hunting aid, fishing aid, and my personal favorite design, the Patriot Aid tumbler. Head over to desertfoxgolf.com and use the promo code Roughnecks for 10% off your order. But let's get into today's guest. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks Podcast, where we grab the bull by the horns and take control of our lives. Couple quick announcements before we dive into today's guest. I want to remind you guys to sign up for the newsletter. You can do that by going to roughneckspodcast.com. It'll pop up first thing when you get there. Just put your email in and you'll sign up for the newsletter. There's a lot of stuff that I announce through the newsletter. I also post it on social media, but you will be getting first it'll go to the newsletter before it'll go to social media usually. Things like a merch drop that's coming up here in a few months. And also there's another big announcement. I won't give that away yet. It may be out by the time this episode comes out, but I don't want to give it away too early. But sign up for the newsletter and you'll get to hear that. Like I said, go to roughneckspodcast.com. Just put in your email. You will be signed up. But joining me today is an awesome guest that is doing some really cool things. But without further ado, Casey, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast.
What's up? Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is.
Yeah, I've been following you on Instagram, I think because do you know Billy Phillips?
Of course. He's a friggin' man. I love that guy.
Yeah. So I believe that's how I found out about you, is after I did an episode with him and stuff. And then I started watching your stuff and just loved your videos on Instagram. We'll dive into that for sure. But
Cool.
Just to kind of kick off the episode, I like to allow the guests to give the Roughnecks listeners a little background on themselves. So tell us who Casey is.
Okay. So I am a human man, a human male. I'm a falconer, a father, a plumber, a husband, and just love the outdoors. I bow hunt, I rifle hunt. I don't trap, which is the only thing that I wish that I learned. I never learned it, but I've been flying. I've been a falconer for many years, going on close to 20 at this point. And yeah, man, anything to do with outdoors, anything. I have an obsessive personality. So when me and my brother were young, my brother's a bow hunting freak. He's another potential guest for you. Kills monsters every year. Like, as crazy as I am with my birds, like from my content, he's like the same or more with hunting big whitetails with a bow. And he's like nuts. So me and him originally got hooked and bit by the bow hunting bug. And we'd be out there any chance we got. I didn't have a driver's license. He had the driver's license. He's 4 years older than me. We would drive to the field. Whenever we got a chance, we'd sneak in the woods. We would drive. I don't know if guys still do this anymore, but we would drive in our underwear or in plastic bags. And we had all our gear and coolers in the trunk. And when we got to the field, no matter how cold it was, we'd get out, put a tarp on the ground, and it could be 10 degrees. We'd be pulling our freaking our scent blocker clothes on, and then spraying each other down, and then just go to our stands, and then, text each other as the day progresses. So I've been in the field, for my whole life. My dad never hunted, which is weird. A lot of people think like, your dad must have. No, I had a father figure, good friend of mine. He's a amazing guy, and he's a crazy bow hunter. And I used to work for him when I was a little kid plowing snow. And one year he goes, "All right, I got this little PSE in the basement, beautiful bow. I can either give you your $200 for plowing snow all night, or I can give you this bow with arrows." And I remember the first time I said, "Just, I need the money, whatever." I was a little kid. And then the second time I was like, "Man, give me that bow." And then we sighted it in, got all my sights, and then it became like just like not a downhill spiral, a friggin' an amazing thing for a young, 13-year-old hyperactive, crazy young kid to get into. Could have been way worse things to get into. And then I just started bow hunting, and I was always interested in birds. I was always I always wanted to be a falconer. I found out about it, but I was too young, so I started bow hunting first, and then kind of melded the two together. And yeah, so then over the years, I just kind of, as you run a business and you're married and you have kids, there's only so many hours in the day to piss your wife off. So yeah, so I kind of have to pick and choose my battles. So I do a lot more falconry these days, but I do still love bow hunting and getting out in the field hunting, big game as well. So
The funny thing is, too, my first bow was a PSE as well. I don't know if that's like the best beginner bow or what, but it was given
Worked
to
for
me
me,
by
man.
somebody, and that was my first bow. That's the first time I got to kill a deer with a bow. I mean, I killed a couple with a gun before that, but when I got the bow kill, like getting a bow kill versus a gun kill is usually, for me at least, it's like a whole different experience because
it's night and
it
day.
takes a lot more practice getting that thing sighted in, getting good with it, and then having that deer walk to the perfect spot to where you can get a shot off.
Oh yeah, it's completely different. It's a whole nother world. I actually never shot a deer or any big game with a rifle until I was like 17 or 18 years old. And then my same guy, he's like, "I got this." I used to work for him, so I'd work for him, and part time, and he'd come to the job site, and I'd be out there doing landscaping with his crew, and blowing leaves, and he'd call me over the truck, and he'd be like, "The wind's a southwest wind, coming out of the east." He's like, "Let's go to your house and get your stuff. Let's go." And I would jump in the truck, put the leaf blower down, and jump in his truck, get my gear, get his gear, and we would shoot up to whatever spot he had, and he'd set me up at a spot. He would tell me, "I'm over there. I'm like 500 yards over here. Just any problems, let me know." And he's like, "All right, it's gun season. Here's your, get your tag. Here's your 30-30." He gave me like this 30-30 lever action with like duct tape on it. And the first deer I shot was a little, I think it was like a 6-pointer or something, upstate New York. And it was hilarious. I mean, we don't have to get into the story now, but it was it was hilarious. I'll just tell the story. We have a few minutes. So I'm sitting in a tree stand, and I got the gun, first time hunting with a gun, and I see a couple deer moving, far off, way out of range, even with the rifle. And then this little buck comes sneaking through, like 80 yards. It was a little far because it's a lever action 30-30. It's not like you're shooting them a mile away, And he told me that. He's like, "Just don't try to shoot too far." So I put the crosshairs on it. I'm like shaking, I pulled the trigger, but I was anticipating the kick. So I just like saw white. And then I'm like, I must have got him. So I don't wait. I don't sit quietly. I don't do anything. I just get down, gun was probably loaded, and I'm like climbing out of the tree stand with the gun, and I'm going through the brush, and dude, I get there, and this thing stands up, and he's got blood coming out of his nose, and he's like gurgling, and he goes, "Arr, and I never forget it. And he starts like not charging me, but like he started coming towards me, like he like was trying to intimidate me. So I just like unloaded into him, like freaking John Wayne with the freaking lever action. And I must have shot him. I mean, I don't know how many times I shot him. And then my phone is blowing up, text messages. And the guy I was with, Dave, he's like, what are you doing over? He's like, you better have got him or something funny. He said something funny like that. And, after all the bullet holes, we still got some good meat off of him. And so that was the first deer I killed with a gun. So, little backstory.
And it's that, like, especially like that when we're younger and stuff, like we shoot that deer and it's like you're supposed to wait X amount of time and sit there quietly, and it's like so hard because I mean, even as I get older, I'm like, I'm supposed to wait, but I'm like, I just want to get out now. I want to go look for it now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same exact way.
How did you actually get into falconry then?
Okay. So that's an interesting question, and if you listen to there are falconry podcasts, believe it or not, and it's funny because you listen to the stories, and it's like a saying amongst falconers that a falconer is kind of like you're born to be a falconer. And I know a lot of people watching this are probably thinking, like I kind of think sometimes I'm a falconer, and sometimes I see these guys, and I'm like, no disrespect to any falconers listening, but like some of these guys are just so lame, like they're so nerdy, and I'm like, you know what I mean? But like I literally I have to start eating ducks out of my freezer so that I don't get in trouble because my freezer's filled with ducks, filled with rabbits, filled with squirrels because the bird kills as much. You're gonna go against me with your 22, I'll go against you with my freaking goshawk, and we'll see who, at the end of the day, and I'll promise you I'll be close. I may not win, but I'll be close. And so on that note of someone's being born to be a falconer, I found out about falconry like organically. Like I didn't see somebody at out in the field or meet somebody of a friend. My mom literally just read an article in like an outdoor magazine about some falconer and how, they're doing different things for bird conservation and the peregrine falcon and stuff like that they had issues with the DDT and their breeding projects and stuff like that. And then my mom was like, she's like, that's pretty interesting. You can get a license to have a hawk and like hunt with it. And I thought that was like something out of like, Narnia or like Lord of the Rings or something. I'm like, no way. I'm like, there's no way you're allowed to do that. Looked it up. Sure enough, you got to jump through all these crazy hoops, but yes, you are allowed to do it. But there's all kinds of stipulations. So you need a sponsor, you need facilities. Anyway, long story short, my neighbor, I lived in a very expensive neighborhood. My parents didn't even have money. We didn't have money. We shouldn't even live there. We were like the hillbillies living inside of like, the fancy town with like the worst house on the block, running around our underwear, swinging on ropes. We had chickens in the yard. We weren't even allowed. The cops would come because we'd light fires, We didn't belong where we lived. But our neighbor was a wealthy guy, and he didn't give a crap about anything, So he would shoot squirrels with his pellet gun or like his air rifle, like totally illegal where I live. And he would just shoot them all the time. We'd hear him, cracking them off out of his window. And we always knew it as kids. He's shooting. I probably shouldn't say his name, but shooting. It's past the statute of limitations. He's shooting squirrels because his landscaper feeds them to his birds. So I'm like, so then when my mom told me this, like I instantly became like intrigued. Asked my neighbor, I was like 12 years old. My mom asked him really, and I was there. And she's like, is your landscaper a falconer? Is that why he gets all the squirrels from you? And he goes, yeah, I think he does something with birds. So got his number. Long story short, he took us on a hunt. And I mean, I don't care who you are. It's fascinating. It's amazing. I grew up having parrots, little birds, doves, and it's like they get out of the cage, it's over. Like they're gone. You know what I mean? So this guy, we go to his house, he takes these two birds out, and he's like, oh, this is so-and-so, and this is the other one. He's like, yeah, they're Harris Hawks from South America, and they range up into Texas. He's giving us the whole speech, being super nice. I'm a little kid. And then he just like puts his arm up in the air, and they just fly away. And I'm like, dude, you just lost your birds. Like, what are you doing? And then he just starts walking. He's like, all right, come on with me. And my mom was like, all right, let's go. Because my mom, like, she's very protective. She thought the guy was gonna, like, molest me or something. So she walks with us, and she's tripping and falling. And the birds are just like, this dude is walking, and the birds are like up in the big mature oak forest, probably a good spot to hunt some deer. And they're all the way up at the top, and they're like strategically moving, and one will go high, and one will go low, and one will go low, and one will go high. And I didn't know, I just thought they were flying around. But looking back, they were working together. One was trying to flush, and the other was trying to. If one bird would move, the squirrel would see that bird and move to the opposite side of the tree. So then that bird. So they basically would like kind of stagger each other to try to stimulate something to happen. And at one point, the one bird flew down and like out of nowhere. I'm like, where are the birds? It lands right next to me on like a log and just stares at me. And then he whistles and it just flies like. It didn't land on him, but they were hunting. So he whistles and it just takes off after him, goes right above him and starts looking. And I'm like, this is the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen. And then when the hunt, forget about it, I thought that was the coolest thing I ever saw. And then when the squirrel flushed and these two birds are freaking doing corkscrews around the tree, chasing the squirrel's jumping and flying 20 feet through the air, landing on the forest floor, and there's smashing the ground trying to get it, leaves going everywhere. It's like, I'm like, this is so freaking cool. I'm like, there's no way that I'll ever be able to do this. So I jumped through all the hoops. I became obsessed with it. I couldn't sleep at night. And I jumped through all the hoops, and I found somebody to sponsor me, and he didn't want to, because we're kind of like a closed Falconry is kind of like a closed community where like a lot of people, they want to get into it for the wrong reasons, and reasons that your audience will probably respect, because we get a lot of people that are like, I watched like, some Narnia movie, and there's like owls, and I love owls. And I figured out the only way I could get an owl is to become a falconer. And we're like, no, like we don't want you in the group. We don't want you being a falconer. And there's a couple of people that pretend like they're so sneaky. They pretend like they're going to be a falconer, and then they just get a pet owl, and then they have a falconer's license, and they have an owl that just sits in like their room. And they just like take pictures of it all day. You know what I mean? It's like a borderline abusive. So it's like, so I was vetted very, very heavily. But when they found out that I was a hunter to begin with, and I was obsessed with being out in, nature and stuff like that as a kid, it helped to propel me forward. And I ended up getting my first bird at, I believe I was 13 or 14 years old. And I trained it and, started hunting with it. It was like, that feeling is like a feeling that like, you can't pay money for, to have a feeling like that, so, and ever since then I've just progressed more and more, flying different birds, like anything, you can go out with a bow and shoot a doe that walks underneath you and get lucky, but to do it over and over again, or to kill mature whitetails, you have to refine your craft. So I've been refining my craft, flying different birds, making sure, doing everything properly, and trying to maximize, my skills. So that's kind of where I'm at now, basically.
So what are the hoops exactly, if you don't mind me asking, like you have to kind of jump through to be able to do it? I mean, obviously, like you said, there's a long vetting process of being able to do it, because you don't want people doing it for the wrong reason, which is crazy. I mean, there's people that hunt, and it's so easy to go get your license to hunt and do that kind of stuff. And I really like that, actually. They have a bunch of hoops that you have to go through. So kind of what are these hoops that you have to go through?
Okay, so in other countries like Europe, there are no hoops. You can go to a breeder, like a pet store, and like you're buying a dog, and just literally give them money, and they'll give you a hawk, and you drive home. No questions on if you have anywhere to keep it. They don't care. Just give me the money. No regulations. In America, we have what's called the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which protects all native birds of prey in the country. So any bird that would migrate or that lives indigenous to America is protected under that act. So they're highly regulated. Like anybody who's gotten in trouble hunting a turkey at a season or didn't have a duck stamp and got reamed, like, how serious the migratory bird treaty, because those birds, not the turkey so much, but the ducks, the waterfowl, they're highly regulated. They're migratory birds. They're a resource that we have that goes into other countries and comes back, and we're good stewards of the resource. So it's the same exact thing with the birds of prey. So number one, you have to get a sponsor that signs off on the papers that says, I am going to sponsor this individual for 2 years. I'm going to oversee their training, and I am going to make sure that they don't kill the bird, hurt themselves, or hurt somebody else. Because if you train the bird incorrectly, there could be ramifications of the bird getting aggressive, and it is a predator, and it does have talons that will punch holes in you. So so they sign off on that. So you get a sponsor. Then you have to take a test. It's actually a pretty difficult test. You have to know veterinary medicine, different illnesses, diseases, husbandry, identification. And then when you pass that test and you have a sponsor, then you have to build your muse, MEWS. It's called a muse. It's basically a facility like a zoo, like you keep in your yard, with minimum dimensions and requirements. So in America, or at least in New Jersey at the time, each state is different, I believe. It was 8 by 8 by 8. So, just basically like a shed, and you have to have at least 1 or 2 windows, and they have vertical bars because, birds, if you put glass, obviously they're going to fly into the glass and kill themselves. If you put netting, they're going to grab it and get tangled in it. So we have vertical bars that simulates brush, branches, so they know not to fly into it. And then you have to have what's called a weathering area, which is basically like a screen, like a dog run, basically, where you can put them out into the sun. And then New Jersey when I was a kid, when I was young, they were pretty lax. They didn't really get too intense in your equipment. But other states, they want to see like 6 months worth of food for the bird. They want to see your perches, your gloves, your leashes, your jesses, your gear to go in the field. They want to see everything, and they have like a checklist. And then after that process is complete, you now get your apprentice falconry license, excuse me, and you can go out and trap a hawk, a bird of prey. Not any bird of prey. You're allowed to trap at this time, and our state, you're allowed to trap a red-tailed hawk because they are the most common and durable birds, and they're trained very easily for the sport. So you're allowed to trap one of those. And there are many different methods of trapping them. We could get into that if you want, but then you basically go out and trap your bird, and then the training process begins. So that's kind of the, more or less, that's the order of operations to become a falconer.
How does that trapping process go?
Okay, so it's kind of hard to like explain certain things without like drawing it out or a diagram, but the most simple and the most fairly common method is picture a wire, like a hardware cloth, like wire mesh, like a chicken coop, but like a little bit finer, diameters, woven into like a square or an oval, or pretty much whatever style you want, to create like a little cage, very, very low to the ground, roughly like 3 inches, in height. Then you put weights on it. You tie, 50 to 100 fishing line nooses on it at various sizes, smaller to bigger. And then you put a rat in it, and you drive around until you see a red-tailed hawk sitting on a pole or in a tree, and you basically drive up and kind of try to hide yourself, and you toss it out onto the grass and keep driving, and then turn around and watch. And excuse me, and the hawk comes down, ideally, and tries to grab the rat and kill it with its feet. And as it does that, the nooses snare its feet, and then it realizes it's trapped, and then it kind of starts to panic. And when it starts to panic, that's when you approach, and you want to limit the stress, not only for the, to be ethical of the bird, but to start your training process off right. You don't want to start the training process off grabbing it by its legs and space. So we put what's called a hood on its head, which is, a lot of people call it the helmet. I hear that a lot on social media. It's called a hood, and it's basically a little hat that covers the eyes and the, on the top of the head, and has a little braces in the back that you can tighten. And there's many sizes to fit each bird. So you have to obviously pick the size correctly. And then you take it home, gear it up, and start the training process. And the training process is very simple. I think the fastest I ever got a red-tailed hawk out in the wild hunting, I believe, was like 2.5, 3 weeks. I had it flying free coming back to me. So birds of prey and most predators are very opportunistic. So once you get them over that initial trauma of being in your possession, they start to learn really quickly that getting free food from this monkey human is a lot easier than fighting, for my life in the wild and freezing my ass off, in a tree. And they learn pretty quickly that this is a pretty sweet deal. You fly across the yard to this leather glove that has food in it, and I don't have to struggle and fight and get eaten by a coyote. I just get free food. Then after the bird is flying to you from multiple yards away, usually I like to do at least 50 to 100 yards instantaneously. Then your bird is ready to go hunting, and then basically you just take the leash off and let it go. And in the bird's mind, the bird is thinking, "Oh, okay, when's my treat gonna come?" You kick a bush, a rabbit runs out. The bird's like, "Oh shoot, that's a rabbit! I know what that is." Chases it, catches it, and then the bird's like, "Oh, this is what we're doing." So then they just start to follow you around and basically use you as a tool to help them catch their natural quarry. Same goes for the dogs. They start to watch the dogs and anticipate the dog flushing the game for them to catch. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There's obviously many details in the training process, but I don't know if you want to go into all that.
Yeah,
we could if you want, but it's up to you.
I'm very curious how that training process really goes because, I feel like it's definitely not an easy thing, and it's something that you have to acquire a skill to do, but I could be wrong.
There is a level, the word I would use is finesse. There's a level of finesse that you need. Red-tailed hawks are very forgiving, so I've literally seen people just get them on the glove, get the leash and Jess is connected, and in broad daylight out in the yard, take the hood off, and just basically get the bird to calm down, like not by force, but just kind of like it has no choice. It's either going to get over it, it's going to get over it. It's just going to get over it. The method that I like to use is like the least amount of stress possible. So when I trap a new bird, I immediately cover the head and the face to get the eyes. They're stimulated by the eyes. So you can touch them. That's not going to traumatize them. Obviously, you hurt them. That's a whole different story. But touching them, stuff like that, that's not as traumatizing to them as them seeing you in front of their face. So basically, when that bird is trapped, I want to get the hood or a blanket or something on that bird's head as fast as possible so it does not see me. Then I take it home. Let me just start by saying owning a bird of prey without the proper licensing is a federal offense. Just saying. I feel the need to say it because I do get people like, "Oh, I want a bird. How do I get a bird?" I'm like, "What trap are you using?" I'm like, "Bro, do you have a license?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Come on, man. You can't do that."
Is it legal in every state or is it more state by state? Okay. So years ago it was the federal governing body, and then I think a couple of years ago they switched it, and now the states have jurisdiction. So the state makes their own regulations. So it is legal in every single state besides Hawaii. Hawaii, it's not really a state, but I believe that's the only state that is illegal. So not so much of paradise in my opinion, but So it is legal. So I take the bird home, and what I do is I get it covered, and I'm very gentle and I'm very calm with it, and I get it standing on either my glove or a perch, relatively quickly, so it's not, tied up or in a being secured. And then I usually let it sit for like a day or two, and those things don't need to eat that often. Obviously, each bird is different, so if it's very hungry, and you can feel how hungry it is by feeling the keel, like on a duck or a pheasant, you can feel that center bone in the center of the chest, in between the two breast muscles. You can feel that, and that will tell you how good of shape the bird is in. So that's number one. If the bird's fat, they're usually pretty overweight. You let them sit and just let them stay calm, and then I go in a very darkened room, and traditionally they would do it with a candle, but that sounds romantic and everything, but the minute the bird flaps its wings, it puts the candle out and it goes black. So I usually just take like a flashlight and I put it under like a t-shirt or a dimmet or a dimmer or whatever.
and I take a big chunk of bloody meat, like a almost like a carcass. Like if I have a carcass, like of a squirrel carcass or a rabbit carcass, and basically cut it down, not down the middle, but like across the body so that you have the whole chest cavity. I open the whole chest cavity up on the glove with the bird standing on the glove before the hood is even off. And then I very calmly, in almost pitch black, I remove the hood and then freeze. And usually the bird's like, what the heck is going on here? And it's actually kind of funny, like to see them like looking around. And then I just very calmly, and I'll speed up the whole process for the sake of time, I wiggle my fingers very gently. And they're, when they feel something moving under their feet in that way, that stimulates them, because the only time they feel that is when they grab prey. So they look down, see the bloody carcass, and then they some of them immediately want to go for it and then realize what is this, where am I? And then they stop. Some of them just bend down and start eating. But normally it takes a couple hours or even a few days to actually get them to bend down and eat, because in the wild, when a bird, especially a bird or most predators, when they lower their head around a predator, they're basically exposing their whole neck. It's a tactical disadvantage, and for them to do that, it takes a while for them to do that. Sometimes they get hungry or they're desperate and they came down to the trap because they were starving to death in the wild, and they're just like, food, I don't care, and they just start eating it. And then basically you let them eat. I don't like to usually rush it, so I usually just let them eat as much as they want and just make it a very pleasant experience, and then I put the hood back on. Basically day by day, I'm letting them eat and increasing the light so that they're seeing more and more of me. There's different methods. There's guys that use strobes, so they put the strobe on the lowest setting, one. So it's just seeing a flash of you for a split second, and it's pitch black. So the bird's like, what was that? And then it's like, what was that? And it's like, and then they speed up the strobe until it's at the rave, and they can they can see you fully and they're calm. So there's many different methods of doing it. And then basically they eat their carcass, they enjoy their food, and then at a certain point, what I usually do is I let them eat, and as they're eating, I try to roll them off of the glove onto a perch. And there's many different there's hundreds of techniques, but basically what I'm doing a red tail is I basically just get them on the perch, and then I put the food out in front of them, and they're just like, oh wait, why is it out there now? And they start reaching out to try to get it, and I'm like, no, and you just gotta keep it right outside of their beak. And then eventually they start pacing back and forth and looking and bobbing their head and kind of and then eventually they hop, and when they hop, you let them eat as much as they want, or a few bites, and then put them back on and then hold it slightly further. And this is all in a dark room, in your house, and then just basically speed it up. You just increase that distance in your house, and then you go outside. And then usually when you go outside, you sometimes have to start all over. So you kind of have to do it close and let them stay calm and ease back into it. But then it usually progresses a lot faster than the first time. And then after that, like I said, it's just increasing the distance until that bird is coming 100 yards instantaneously to your glove. Now, one detail that's basically the whole entire, the pinnacle of the whole entire process is you're weighing your bird every single day. So you have a scale with a perch on it, and every day before your training, you're placing that bird on the scale, and you're feeling, and what I was taught to do is to place the bird on the scale and feel the keel as well. So you have a number that you're physically seeing with your eyes, and then you have a feeling of the keel on your fingers that you can reference in the future if you needed to. So, because sometimes the scale will say one thing and the keel will say another thing, and you're like, no, the keel says we can actually go hunting right now. I don't care what the scale says, you can go and you'll catch the game, So basically you're narrowing that number. Okay, this bird just hopped instantly to me in my house, 10 feet across my living room, over my wife's head, and it was this weight. So now I marked that down, and when I was a kid, I used to take very meticulous notes. Now I don't write anything down. I forget what my bird weighs the day after I fly. And so you mark that weight down, and then you circle it. That's a great weight. And then you basically just increase the distance. So then one day if the bird tries to fly past you or fly away from you, you go, okay, we need to go a little bit lower with the weight. It's not quite there yet. And then you just fine tune it and then just increase the distance. And then when you're confident and the bird looks confident that it knows what's going on, you cut it loose and basically start trying to get it to understand that you are here to flush game and to help it catch its food. And that's the whole process, basically, in a nutshell.
Is there a specific weight that you're looking for, or does it kind of vary from bird to bird?
It's 1000% varies from bird to bird. So, there's no size that fits all. A female red tail, it could weigh 1,000 grams, or the bird that I flew for the longest time was like 1,550 grams. It's like a monster. So there's a very big range, and the females are always larger than the males. So if there's at a certain point where we call them tweeners, like they're gender neutral. Then it's like, you don't know if it's a female or you don't know if it's a male, because there's a little bit of overlap. You know what I mean? I could go a lot of different directions, but I'm just going to stop myself. I don't want to get canceled.
I appreciate that.
But
so, do you prefer a female, or like, is there one that's better than the other, or is it just kind of, obviously you never know exactly what you're going to get when you're trapping, but is there one that you prefer over the other?
Yeah, so I like flying the females, because in the animal kingdom, the bigger you are, the more confident you are, and the more things that you can theoretically overpower. The males, there's pros and cons. So to answer your question, there's pros and cons. The males are smaller, therefore they're faster and more agile, but they present with slight annoyances, in my personal opinion, in their behavior. So they're a little bit more fearful. So things that would maybe not freak out a female would maybe freak out a male, because he's a little bit smaller, and more things in the wild are trying to kill him. So he's a little bit more on edge. So I've only flown, usually larger female red tails. It's just seeing a rabbit running or a squirrel running, and just seeing like this giant bird just like crush its soul. It's like, it's very impressive to watch. And it's what happens every single day in nature. And it's very impressive to watch. Now, seeing a male do cool, crazy, agile things in the air before it catches something is also very cool. And theoretically, the males can catch more than the females, because they can fit and slide through tighter spots, and it is more fun. But there's a little bit more nuance and finesse that's required to fly them. But it's his personal preference, and I like the big females personally.
I've been watching your Instagram videos, and you have a video of one that, it went after a goose, didn't it?
Yeah, I've caught quite a few geese with my birds. It's impressive and it's fun, because you're using your bird to catch such a large source of food. And for me and my falconry, I like to try to eat as much as I can that my birds catch. Obviously depending on where it's caught and what it is, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to eat like a rabbit that's in like a toxic waste, someplace. But I've been learning to eat more of what they catch. So it is cool when they catch geese. They are a very difficult quarry for a bird to overpower and gain control of. So I have caught quite a few, excuse me, but but if you don't get there quick enough to help get the goose under control, your bird can get seriously injured. Or sometimes they don't. Sometimes they grab them right by the face and they move their body in the right way and they learn to gain control. But the goose is probably 3 times the size of even a large hawk. So it is more of a risk. And the one bird that I had that loved to catch geese, she was obsessed with catching geese from day one. The first thing that she ever went after when I took her into the field was, geese in a park. Like, she flew all the way across the park and grabbed the thing and rolled around with it on the ground. And that was the first thing she did when I took her out. And it was very impressive. But the one day it was one of the most stunning flights that I've ever seen in my life. We're hunting squirrels on the edge of a like a, not really a hedgerow, but it was like a small strip of woods, with some brush in it. So we're hunting rabbits and squirrels in there. And there's a river in the middle, and there's a cemetery on the other side of the river. And there was a flock of geese, and basically the geese got spooked with me pulling vines and, trying to get a squirrel to move from my bird. And the geese took off, and they literally had probably a 200-yard head start on her. And they were just going. And then she just took off through the trees, through the field, and then she's going. And I'm just watching the flock of geese and this white speck just pumping through the sky, going up to meet them. And she just bound to one, 150 feet up in the air. Very high. And 150 feet is a little bit higher, maybe a little bit higher. It depends. It's hard to gauge, but it was a speck from where I was. And they come spinning down to the ground, helicopter into the ground, fighting each other. And then they go behind some gravestones, and I lose sight of them. And I go to cross the stream, and I usually go out hunting with muck boots on, or the equivalent. And I go to cross this river. It's like a river. It's not even a stream. It's like a river. And I go to jump in, because I knew the risk of her getting injured. And dude, I go in up to my thighs in mud with just the tip of my head sticking out of the water. And I was literally stuck. I literally thought I was going to drown. Disgusting mud. And so I'm pulling to get myself out. I can't get across. It's freezing. I'm freezing. I run back to my truck, jump in, I'm going like 100 miles an hour. I blew a red light. I go around all across the river, go around into the cemetery, go in, and I pull up, and all I see is, a white, like a blob of feathers, and I just see a big wing going doosh, doosh, just smacking the living shit out of my bird. And I go over there, and she's bleeding from her nose, from her mouth, and she's just staring blankly ahead, with both feet on the goose's face, in the eye, and she it was done. The goose was gonna die. So I dispatched the goose, and then tried to get her off of it, and she was just she was just not letting go. She was just her brain was scrambled, and she was just staring blankly ahead. So basically, I just kind of pried her feet off of it, and the guy who owned the cemetery actually was going crazy, and he came up to me. He was, I'm calling the cops, going crazy. You got to stay out of here. There's no trespassing. I said, dude, I'm covered in mud and water. I said, it looked like I was in here. I said, I was all the way over there. I said, I wasn't even in here. So anyway, that happens from time to time where the bird flies somewhere where it's not supposed to, and there's really no way around it other than knowing where you're hunting and trying to be as careful as possible for the sake of your bird and other people's, livestock, fowl and stuff like that. So I got out of the vet, and I gave her anti-inflammatories to help keep her brain from swelling, because that's the biggest thing when they get head trauma is their brain swells, and that's what kills them. You know what I mean? So, or internal bleeding. So if you can give them some anti-inflammatories, that's the most common thing you can do to try to help to keep the brain from swelling, for them to, to recover without, obviously passing away. And she ended up being fine. And she ended up coming to in the car on my lap. She basically picked up where she left off on the goose, and it was going nuts in my truck. I almost crashed, and I had to pull over on the road, and she's going nuts, friggin' like a pit bull. Where's the goose? Where's the goose? Going nuts, So I gave her a reward and just let her eat on the front seat of the car while we drove, after I almost crashed. And after that that bird never went after a goose again. So she learned her lesson. That bird passed away, sadly, but that was the most aggressive bird on geese that I had. So it was a lot of fun while it lasted, I guess.
What's up, everybody? I hope you're enjoying today's guest. A lot of people ask me how they can support the Roughnecks podcast. So I wanted to take a quick break to tell you the best way to support the podcast is to buy and wear merch. We have merch available on our website, from hats, t-shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, and even coffee cups. There are even youth sizes available for the kids. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and make your purchase today. Thank you for all the support, but let's get back to today's guest. Do you usually keep them for their lifespan, or do you usually set them back? Because I've heard there's different versions, different ways to do it. So what's your style and kind of why?
Yeah, so I know Billy, who was a guest on your podcast, he loves, this is the classic, not even classic, the ancient tradition basically is you trap a young bird, meaning a bird in its first year, just leaves the nest, just learns out how to hunt. You trap that bird and you train that bird. You hunt with it for a whole season, and at the end of the season, you release it back into the wild, have the whole summer off, no obligations, and then you start the whole process all over again in the fall. Um, for me, I like that, and I will practice my falconry in that way if I get a bird that I don't necessarily like am a fan of. Like this last red tail I had this red tail for the whole season, and I just wasn't a fan of her. I didn't really like the way she flew. I didn't like the way she acted. She would get weird around people. So as soon as the season was almost over, I fattened her up, got her nice and fat, and cut her loose. And she's going to go right back into the wild and revert right, like within a couple days, she's going to revert back into a wild animal and want nothing to do with people, especially that bird. So that is what that is the traditional way. But for me lately, I've been getting captive bred birds that are imprinted, meaning you purchase them or you acquire them from the wild as a chick, which is another method of getting birds from the wild, which requires the same level of permitting, if not more, depending on the bird that you're getting. It's very regulated. All different kinds of rules on the nest and the number of birds in the nest and how many you have to leave, and documentation and permitting and locations. You have to submit the location of the tree. Sometimes the actual DEC wants to come with you when you climb it to document it. And so there is a lot of different things like that. But it's a lot easier to just pay one of the many breeders, the excellent breeders we have in the country that breed all these beautiful birds and devote their life to breeding the birds that we get to enjoy. It's a lot easier to just pay them, a nice chunk of change, and then they mail you a beautiful little fuzzy downy chick that you get to raise and mold into a hunting machine. So that's what I've been doing lately. So when you have a bird like that, it is basically it's imprinted on you and on people, and you would never be able to release that bird back in the wild. Now they will probably, when the bird is fully trained and killing and hunting and has a lot of experience, if it got loose, it would probably survive indefinitely because it learns over the course of the time with you what predators are, how to conduct itself, what's a safe, prey item to go after, what's not a safe prey item. So they probably would survive, but you're not allowed to just buy a Siberian goshawk, which is what I have, and then I'm done flying. I'm going to fill out my permit, because whenever you release a bird, you have to fill out a permit and then just submit it to the state saying I released this captive bred goshawk. No, you can't do that. And especially if it's a subspecies or something that's not necessarily indigenous to our country, you have to keep it. So you got to find somebody else to take it if you don't want it, or just fly it for the rest of its life as you have it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people sometimes they get if they see it and obviously don't know about it, they're like, oh man, they just trap these birds and then and they'll let them back in the wild and they just have no idea what to do. And it's like, no, the bird still knows exactly what to do, because that's what it's been doing the whole time it was with its handler. The entire time it was still hunting. And like you said, when it goes back in the wild, it'll a day or so, and then it completely forgets about humans and is just back to the normal bird it is.
Correct. It's that's probably the number one thing. And when I try to put myself into anti-hunters or outdoorsy people, or even other hunters that are critical of falconers, I try to put myself in their shoes, and that is the only argument that I could see somebody saying. One second, my dog's barking. That's the only argument I could see somebody making. But it's actually a very simple answer, and it actually makes falconry even more beautiful, because the studies and the documentation that the state and the DEC has done on birds of prey, we now know that 70 to 80% of all birds of prey die before they reach 1 year of maturity. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 60 to 70% of those birds, even after a year, don't make it to 2 years. So you're losing a very significant number of birds within their first year. So basically saying there's 250 falconers in New Jersey, saying, so theoretically 20 or so people, or 100 people in New Jersey can trap 100 red tails and train them, even though there's not that many people trapping red tails in New Jersey. There's not really that many active falconers. There's license holders, and then there's real falconers that are out flying, and that's a much lower number. There's only about 3,000, I think between 3,000 and 5,000 falconers in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not really like we're, having a huge impact. And any hunter that would, give me grief about it, I would just say to them, well, you're killing X amount of game animals per year. Like, why do you get to do that? Because it's a renewable resource. So we get to utilize the resource in a ancient traditional way, which is just as much a part of human heritage as actual hunting is. Falconry is a 5,000-year-old sport that has been practiced in literally every single country in the world. So it's just as much a part of human culture as hunting is for every other culture there is. There's plenty of overlap. You can watch a guy in Spain, hunt an ibex with a bow on the side of a mountain and think it's the coolest thing ever. And you're doing the exact same thing in Ohio, hunting whitetail out of it, spot and stalk or whatever the case may be, or from a tree stand. It's the same way. And I can see a falconer in Spain flying a goshawk and catching hares on these beautiful orchards with his dogs. And the same way I'm catching rabbits with my dachshund, in New Jersey or New York. It's the same thing. It transcends cultures. It transcends languages. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's a renewable resource. So there's really no argument that can logically be made. And as we know, people like to make arguments these days that are not logical and not grounded in reality. And to somebody to hate me and despise me for allowing a bird of prey to catch and kill and eat its own food is like, I used to give people like that the time of day and try to talk to them. Now I'm like, you are so far, your IQ is so low, like there's no saving you. Like, okay, hate me. There's nothing I can say to you. You know what I mean? Same way someone's going to say, you're going to put an arrow through a deer and take it home and eat it. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do that. It's like, yeah, of course I'm going to do that. Part of who I am. It's part of the way I like to feed my family and raise my children, So that's the argument that people try to make, and it just backfires on them because it is a renewable resource. And studies have shown that when you have a bird, and not even studies, just logic, I have a bird of prey that is hunting and chasing quarry. And when it misses and when it doesn't catch something, which happens on a regular basis, that bird could theoretically starve to death that night when the temperatures drop and they're burning a lot of calories. That bird may not wake up the next morning. Or it catches a rabbit and that rabbit's squealing its head off in the brush. That coyote is not going to come and kill it because I'm there. So the bird is learning different skills and actually has many get out of jail free cards. They get sick, they would die. They don't die with us because we give them veterinary medicine. So it's actually like a cheat code for birds of prey. And then after they gain all these skills and all these resources, we let them back into the wild. And now you have like this super hunter that can go ahead and breed and create new birds of prey and teach them the skills that they've learned with no consequences. So that's kind of like my argument that I usually say when people, give me a little bit of a hard time,
But yeah, I mean, it's crazy because people look at it and they're like, oh, you're just putting an arrow through an innocent animal, or you're using a bird to kill an innocent animal. And it's like, there's bag limits for a reason. Like we're given
Exactly.
In Ohio, you get 2 does and a buck usually. It's been that way for a long time. Like they literally sit down and do the math and look at, their population. It's because there is an overpopulation issue. Like, and
Correct.
Their habitats are shrinking because we're putting in more and more neighborhoods, and which I get, it's fine, whatever, But
Yeah.
then, like, their habitats, like your house, like when people say that, they're like, "Oh, you can put an animal or put an arrow through an animal." It's like you don't realize how many animals you just killed because of the neighborhood that you live in. Like you just took
Exactly.
out that whole habitat where wild, like, I mean, where I grew up across the street, my dad used to talk about. He's like, "Man, that." There's condos across the street from my parents, and he's like, I used to bale that field of hay, and like we used to go hunt rabbits in it
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. And it's like
Yep.
now it's all neighborhood. That's all it is, and
Yep.
it
Yep.
changes. People don't realize we're limiting the animal's space, and it's making it a lot more overpopulation issue. And there's a reason for it. It's not like we're just out there
Yeah.
doing it for fun of killing or everything. Like anybody that pretty much every hunter that I've ever talked to, when they get that animal, whether it's with a bird or whether it's with a gun or an arrow, whatever it is, they're very thankful because they know that's going to feed their family. It's something that they're
Yeah.
going to get to eat. It's not like
Exactly.
we're just doing it and just like tossing it aside, like whatever.
Yep. Exactly.
And you're big on social media too, so I feel like you get a little bit more kickback sometimes. Do you ever have that issue of on social media people commenting and saying things?
You do. You want to hear the thing? And for all you waterfowl hunters out there that are listening, you guys got to relax, man. You guys got to calm down. There is like this beef with upland guys and waterfowl hunters with birds of prey. Like they're like bloodthirsty to kill birds of prey, and it's like I guess it's in the culture. And listen, I've killed many ducks. I've killed more ducks than probably most duck hunters kill with a bird. You know what I mean? So it's like I want them to be around just as much as you do, but there is this culture of hatred towards birds of prey. And the reality is I have the hatred that we all have for, not hatred, but well, actually for me, it's probably hatred. So I'm not going to speak for you or anybody else, but I hate coyotes. I do not like coyotes. I think we should kill them all. I think that every time you see one and you're in the stand and you don't put an arrow or a bullet through it, I think that you should be stoned. I do not like coyotes, and they repopulate like rats, so that you're really not affecting anything by killing them. The only thing you're doing is you're saving fawns, you're saving rabbits that I want to catch, and squirrels and other game animals that we all love. So a bird of prey, you can't hate a bird of prey the same way that you hate a coyote, because a coyote, think about how many pounds of meat one coyote can eat in 1 week. If my bird sitting outside catches a rabbit in the wild, that bird is going to eat on that rabbit for probably 2 full days, meaning it's going to eat as much as it can in one sitting, hide it or leave it where it is, or if it can, get it up into the tree with it, and it will just sit there for 2-3 days and just feed on it and gorge itself. And then after that, it's not going to hunt for like 4 or 5 more days. It's just going to sit there fat and happy. And then same thing like what we do with falconry. Once the weight starts to come back down again, then they're going to get stimulated to hunt again, and then they're going to go out and catch another one. They're not catching 4 or 5 rabbits a week like a coyote is. They're catching maybe one, and most of the time it's not even rabbits or squirrels. They're catching voles and mice and rats. And obviously pheasants and stuff like that. Red tails love pheasants and game birds. But really the issue with game birds and waterfowl, and the studies have shown this, and everybody who's listening to this has probably listened to the Meat Eater podcast, and they had a couple biologists come on there. And the biggest, I think the one guy said the biggest thing that is destroying the duck numbers is I forgot the name of that size mammal, but skunks, raccoons, possums, they're destroying the nests and eating them because there's so many of them, because we're not trapping them anymore. We're not hunting them anymore because the furs are no value. There's no value to them. So nobody's incentivized to hunt them. So don't be mad at my hawk that maybe will eat 1 duck a week. Be mad at the coyotes, the raccoons, the skunks, the things that are destroying the nests before they even get a chance to get out into the ponds. So I said that. So when that's what I tell people. I say, you want to do something for your ducks, get out and do some trapping or do some predator management. That's the biggest thing that we can do. A hawk is not eating the level of meat that you think it is. It's really not. And I can tell you that firsthand. You know what I mean? So that's another thing that I feel like inside of me, like I feel like convicted, like I feel like conviction that I should do more to try to bridge the gap between birds of prey and like waterfowl guys. But yeah, to go back to the original question, the most hate that I get is when I post a sweet duck catch of my bird catching a duck. And, I can't control if she catches a hen or not. So I get I get obliterated online for catching a hen. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to catch the hen as much as you don't want me to catch the hen, but that's the one that went left when it should have went right. And my bird said, you're done, and smoked it. So what am I going to do? And so that's probably the biggest amount of hate. Most people, they'll try to make an argument. And then once I just kindly explain to them that no, the bird is not chained to my glove, I actually release it. And I usually just, if I'm feeling nice, I'll actually just send them a quick, link to one of my other videos of the bird up in the sky soaring around. And I'm like, no, the bird actually flies around like a wild bird and comes back voluntarily. There's no chaining going on here. So yeah, so I do get some hate, but not really as much as some people. And I don't know why that is, because some people get a lot of hate. They get a lot of hate. And I think it's the way you present yourself. I try to make it not about me and my videos. I try to make it about the birds and what they're doing and the beauty of them. And to be honest, man, nobody wants to see a short, bald guy talking into the camera, trying to you know what I mean? Like, you just want to see the cool birds doing what they do in nature and just get to see that beauty that most people in their whole life never get to see something cool like that, So.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think my girlfriend might be a little annoyed with me because the past few days, I've been doing my research, especially, and looking through your Instagram a lot. And I got the endless scroll through your feed, and I was like, look at this one. She's like, you showed me this one. And I'm like, well, here, look at this one. Because that's the other thing. Your videos are so freaking sweet. How, what is your setup with your cameras and whatnot?
Yeah. So going back to when I was a kid, man, the only thing I regret is I never, I used to try a little bit with my flip phone, but I never really recorded any of my hunts when I was a kid. And we had some fun ones, And so basically I just use a GoPro. I got a 10. I got the Hero 10. And I just mount it to my head. And basically you don't have to do anything crazy. You just, when I feel like something's about to happen or we're in mid chase, I reach up, I click it on, it turns on automatically, starts recording, and wherever my head is facing, that's what we're going to catch on the camera. And then I edit it and stuff like that. And then I got excited because I saw he was it was a snowboarder with the 360 cam going down. And I'm like, how is that not what is it, a drone? How is he doing that? And I researched it. I'm like, he has a 360 cam and he has it on a pole, and it's the camera is deleting the pole and he's holding it in his hand. And the technology of those things, it doesn't even look like it's moving. So it just looks like there's a drone following the guy through the mountains. So I'm like, if I get one of those, I could probably try to do that in the same way and maybe get some cool footage. I just did it for fun. And it is fun, and it does get some pretty cool shots. And so every now and then I'll pull that thing out of my bag and stick it on a tripod or lean it against a tree and, get two different angles. And post production, you can edit those things. And for you bow hunters out there, you don't have to reach when you got that buck coming in, he's going down the wrong shooting lane that your camera's facing. Instead of moving to change that angle, that thing is filming 360 degrees. It's filming your feet at the same time. It's filming the top of the tree all at the same time. So when you're done filming, all you have to do is go back and just edit it to get the buck in the screen and get that beautiful shot. So I got it for that reason too, because I'm there's so many times where the bird went over here and I missed it. It was cool and I didn't see it. So now I got this thing where it's now I'm never going to miss anything again, And so I just have the two cameras and then my iPhone, you know what I mean? And I try to not lose sight of the beauty of what I'm doing by always trying to catch the flight on film. And I'm sure a lot of bow hunters out there, sometimes you get maybe a couple people are following you and your buddies love the videos you're getting and you want to make sure you get a good video. And it's sometimes if you don't get the video, it's you can feel a little pissed off. Okay, it was awesome. I only got to enjoy it, but I know a lot of other people would have enjoyed it and I didn't get it. But it's at the end of the day, man, that's in that moment, that's just an opportunity for you as a hunter to be like, you know what? This was my special moment by myself doing something that humans have been doing for thousands of years. And I got to blast that arrow through that buck as he came through that shooting lane. And I got to watch him run and fall. And that's my moment. And I don't have to share it with anybody else. So there is a level of that. So, but when I get, then you get people following you and like, now I feel like you feel like you have to post like every day. And it's like, I don't want to have to post every day. You know what I mean? But like, if I get a cool shot, I want to post it because I'm like, dude, this was awesome. Other people are going to like this. So, so yeah, basically it's a GoPro. And then I got the 360 cam with the stick on it, the selfie stick.
The funny thing
you ain't missing
too,
anything.
I have a GoPro mounted to my bow, and I've killed probably 3 or 4 deer since I did it, and I don't think I've recorded one of them because I always like get so caught up in the moment of like, oh, there's deer, there's the buck walking in, like, and I'll be like, and then I'll shoot and I'll hit it and it'll run, and I'm like, wait, crap, I forgot
I didn't push
the
record.
video. I do it all the time. And it's hard too. Like I feel you on the social media thing. Like once you get some followers and stuff, like with the podcast, I'm like, I should be posting a lot more, but I'm like, like I forget.
You should though. I think your podcast is awesome, and I think you should post more.
I'm trying. I'm working on it.
Get on it. Come on.
It's hard right now, especially because like I do everything for this podcast pretty much myself, other than the new Friday episodes with Reno's Rants. So I do all the recording myself. I schedule everything, make all the graphic. I do everything myself. So I need to hopefully I get somebody that can at least maybe do a little bit more posting for me. But I'm working on the social media thing because a lot of people that I've had on, especially like that have businesses and stuff, and they're like, dude, social media. And it's funny because like I go tell my boss all the time, like, hey, we need to utilize social media. It's free marketing. Like that, we don't have to pay anything for it. We can just use it as marketing. And I tell them all the time. And I went to school for marketing and have a marketing degree.
Really?
And I don't even utilize it the way that I should.
Use that degree, man. Do some marketing.
I know.
Let's go.
But you also use dogs, and I'm assuming the reason to use the dogs is to flush the animals out. But it's crazy. I want to ask why you use the breed of dogs that you do. And actually, this was a question that my girlfriend had for you. But like, why the breed that you use?
Okay, I will answer that question with a question. So when you're hunting rabbits are usually in the tightest, smallest crevice that they can squeeze their little cottontail ass in. And I get into friendly debates with these other guys all the time, the beagle guys, the cocker spaniel guys, and I mean they're all like, oh, your little wiener dog, this and that. I said, dude, my dog has the nose of a hound on it, and it can literally go wherever that rabbit goes. So that rabbit goes down a hole, your hunt is over. You're going home or you're going to find another rabbit. Mm-hmm. I'm setting up my gear. I'm digging out the hole with my hands and I'm getting her in there and she's going to pop it out of the other side and my bird's going to smoke it. You know what I mean? So they're definitely an untapped resource for the cottontail rabbit scene. Hounds are great and beagles are great and they'll push them. And I've been out with some guys with some awesome beagles, and beagles are great dogs for pushing rabbits. But once that rabbit's in a hole or a brush pile or a crevice or a shed or underneath a shipping container or a pile of rocks, like your hunt is over. You know what I mean? So why not have a dog that can squeeze in there and pop it out? And the reason why the main reason, to be honest, why I use the dog is because my sponsors that sponsored me, they use those dogs, and their sponsor, who is some of the listeners may be familiar, Teddy Moritz. She was in Outdoor Life magazine. She basically pioneered the use of those dogs and proved out the lines of them for hunting quality lines. And the dog that I have, Ginger, is from Teddy Moritz, and it's from a freshly imported line from, I want to say the Czech Republic or something like that. But they are, even my brother-in-law, he's like, that's not a hunting dog. He's like, that's a pet. And I'm like, and we got in like this huge debate. And I'm like, dude, it's a hunting dog. He's like, no, it's not. It's a pet. I'm like, why do you think its body is shaped like that? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, dude, to go down holes. And now after he sees my videos, he doesn't say anything anymore. Now he's quiet. But I love bringing that dog out with other people. And when she turns on and she's on a scent, I mean, she'll go 100 yards she'll be on that rabbit's scent the whole way and not move a muscle. She's got easily the same nose as a beagle, easily. And obviously there's setbacks. They're smaller. I am nervous about coyotes and stuff like that. So I do think about possibly adding in a larger dog to help with security and to cover more ground, because at the end of the day, it's a small dog and they're meticulous and they work thick cover very meticulously. And a larger dog like a cocker would be nice to cover some serious ground and just make lanes back and forth until we get a good flush. But for what I do, hunting in tight areas and places that I may not necessarily be allowed to be, it's nice to have a dog that's small, inconspicuous, and it's not going to kill somebody else's dog either. You know, these guys with these draughts and stuff like that. I mean, that thing is, you know, it may kill somebody else's dog out in the field. Like, you don't know. You know what I mean? So for me, the Dachshund works perfectly, and they are just as much of a hunting dog as anybody else's dogs. And we take the training and the breeding of our dogs just as seriously as the wire hair guys, or, you know, the beagle guys, or whatever the case may be. So it's just another subset of, you know, hunting dog culture that we engage in, you know.
I love watching the videos too. Like, it is true. Like, that dog can fit through all those holes, and that dog's like loving its life too when it's coming through those holes.
Oh yeah. That is her mission in life, is to squeeze in a hole and kill that rabbit. And 9 times out of 10 she doesn't, and it runs out the other side. But every now and then, man, probably 5% of the time, she'll get it in there and kill it. And that's like her life's dream, is to get that rabbit in there and kill it and drag it back out and show me what she got. But that's obviously not the point. But yeah, man, that's what I tell people. Do that with your dog. You can't do that with your dog. It's in that brush pile. It's gone forever.
What's easier to you? Is it training the bird or training the dog?
Definitely training the dog is easier, especially a dog from a good line. And I'm sure any guy out there that runs dogs or hounds, those dogs, man, they come from a good line, and you get a good one, freaking practically train themselves. All you have to teach them is to come, sit, and stay, and the rest they're going to do on their own. Just provide them the opportunity. And I mean, I didn't really even do much work with her. I was busy with work over the last summer when she's only a year old, year and a half. And I would basically just come home from work, and I would just take a rabbit carcass out of my freezer. Right when I got out of the truck, do a crazy drag. I got 4 acres, and hide it somewhere, run back into the house, let the dog out to pee, and then stand there and watch her as a little puppy. And then all of a sudden she would catch that scent, find it, and it just got to the point where it was just too easy. Like, there's nowhere where I could hide that, where she wouldn't find it in 5 seconds. So I'm like, all right, time to get this dog out in the field. Just went to some good rabbit fields, and I had a young hawk at the same time that was just learning what hunting is and flying. So I was able to release the hawk into the field to fly around and build muscle. It had no intention of catching anything. It doesn't even know it doesn't even know what the heck it's doing. But we fly them when they're young to help build muscle and to get a natural experience that they would normally get in the wild. So I'd take my son out after work, cut the dog loose in a field, let her stumble around in there and find rabbits and get excited. And the bird would sit in a tree and watch, and go down and take a bath in a stream. And when it started to get dark, I'd take the kids home. Wife was happy, son was happy, dogs are happy, and the birds are happy. So that's a good life. So,
what all type of birds do you have?
Right, dude, I downsized. Right now, I have the white goshawk from my videos, which is my 3rd white goshawk. So some of the videos on my story, it's not all the same bird. So it's hard to tell, obviously, but sometimes majority of the flights are the same bird from this year. But like, if you go back a couple years, it's different white birds. I have that. I have a falcon, a gyrfalcon, which is from like Alaska and the Arctic. It's a big white falcon. And I have a little owl that my buddy sold me as like a, they're expensive, and he gave me a good deal on it. And basically, I let my son and my wife handle it, and just a pet. It's basically just a pet. I mean, you're not really gonna hunt with a little microscopic small owl. You just kind of let them fly around and eat stuff, and they're happy. So that's all I have right now.
How many did you have? Like, what was the most you would say you had at one point?
At one point, I had 4. I had the owl, I had the falcon, I had the red tail, and I had the goshawk. That was 4. Anything more than that, man, as one person, like you're either unemployed or you like work at night or something, because there's no way, especially with what I do and my philosophy, is if I can't get that bird out in the field hunting and catching stuff, like there's no point in really having it, because it's not right. You know what I mean? That bird, the same way your dog wants to run and get on a scent and track stuff, that bird wants to squeeze the life out of something and watch it die. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I honestly think that they get off, they get off on it. And I mean, it's part of their psyche, the same way as humans. We need something to do. If you don't have a job or something that stimulates you, like you just become like a crazy person. Like that's what they want to do, and that's what they get off on. So, and flying them is a commitment. You know what I mean? It's a commitment. It's a lot of hours in the field. I easily spend, I mean, I don't even know the math, but I mean, I basically spend 2 to 5 hours in the field almost every single day, except for like, Saturdays and Sundays, depending, or like during the week if I'm busy with work, but in the summer, like early season, when it gets dark super late, like, dude, at 4:30, I'm speeding home after work to get my bird out or get my bow and get in a tree. You know what I mean? It's either one of the two. So it's like, and I'm sitting there till dark, and what time it gets dark at like 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So it's, I'm easily spending crazy amounts of hours in the field, so it's a commitment, you know what I mean? So, but I am getting a new bird this year, which will be fun. So I'm getting another chick, from a good breeder friend of mine, and he also runs Cocker Spaniels. So he's been trying to push me over to the Cocker side, and his dogs are beautiful, and the way they move and the way that they track is very beautiful, and I wouldn't mind adding one to my team here. So we'll see, but so that's what's coming new, this season.
We're gonna kind of go into these final segments of the podcast. I could ask freaking 5,000 more falconry questions, but for the sake of time, I do have a question that I like to ask all of my guests, and it is: if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
I would definitely tell him to break up with her. She's a skank. That's first and foremost. And then I would honestly say keep doing what you're doing, because I was working my butt off as a plumber. I was getting in the field. I was doing my best to stay out of trouble. I probably would tell my 21-year-old self to not party as much as I did. That was a waste of money and time and close calls and fights and whatever. It could have went much worse than it did. And I'm blessed that my mom prays for me, because it could have been bad. And always save money. I think saving money, I think, even if you do save money, you can always save more money. So I'll tell myself to just save your money more. You know what I mean? Stop buying birds and dogs and guns and bows and broadheads for $70 a pack.
Oh, saving money. Definitely wish I could go back and tell myself, even if
Yeah.
One of the best advice I ever got was like, you can't save $100 till you save $5, or you can't save $5 till you save $1. And it's like, sometimes, even if you had an extra dollar or two, instead of going and getting a candy bar at the gas station or buying a 12-pack, why don't you just put that money back and save it instead of just wasting
Exactly. Dude, exactly.
But
so much money is wasted.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do it. it's so quick, and all of a sudden, then there's no turning back.
Exactly.
But this moves
Agreed.
us into the best segment of the podcast, which is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday is the point in the episode where I allow the guests to give the Roughnecks listeners a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week as they listen on Monday morning. So what do you got for Motivation Monday?
Okay, there's many directions I could go with that, and many different angles I could approach it. But assuming everybody that's listening is probably a hunter or possibly some falconers that are tuning in to give you some support and listen to me, I would say, and this is what I've said in the past, just take the time to enjoy your experience in the field. Just put a goal in front of you and work towards it, and don't idolize the goal. So sometimes we get in the tree stand and we sit there and we're like praying to God, wishing on our lucky star that doe or that buck or that bear walks out so that we can put an arrow through it, and we like completely don't even enjoy the moment that we have to just sit there in God's creation, peace and quiet, and just observe and listen. And yeah, man, and if I could go back in time and tell myself something and give myself some motivation, I haven't arrived yet. Obviously, I still have other goals in life, but I have worked very hard to build a business, and I have a home and I have acreage. And I would tell any young hunter out there, just put your time in, hustle, work, save your money, stop going after these girls. You shouldn't even be going after girls unless you are established. It's a waste of your time and a waste of your money. And if you build yourself and if you put the time in, bro, the girls are going to come after you anyway. So there's no reason for you to waste your time chasing them. And just make a goal in mind. And me as a hunter and a falconer, I would nowhere near be able to spend as much time in the field and enjoy my hobbies that I live for if I didn't own my own business. So I would say that if you are good at something, if you're good at painting, if you're good at being an accountant or a lawyer or whatever the case may be, or you're in school, try to strategize yourself so that you can own your own, I hate to say destiny and sound like a tool, but like I control my own day. Like, hey, it's going to be a nice day tomorrow. It's going to be 30 degrees, no wind. I want to fly my bird. I'm going to schedule my day tomorrow so that I can get home at 3:00 and have 3 hours in the field. Now, when I worked for guys, I had 15 years where I had to bust my ass and come home in the dark, covered in dust, doing plumbing. And I set a goal to own my own business. I jumped through the hurdles, the nightmare to get your plumbing license and school and testing and lawyers and paperwork. And I got it, built my business, built my clientele, was diligent with everything I did. And like I said, I've not arrived. I'm not wealthy, rich by any means, but I'm comfortable. And me and my wife are comfortable, married a good woman, have a beautiful son. And like I said, I'm not arrived, but I feel like everything that I did and the sacrifices I made when I was a kid, now I want to go hunting on a Tuesday. I'm going hunting on Tuesday. I am scheduling 0 jobs and I'm waking up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to be in a tree. And that's my day. Hold all my calls. You know what I mean? So if you're good at something and you have a passion for what you're doing, try to strategize it so that you can own it yourself and reap all the rewards yourself.
Yeah, that's big, because that's one of the things my boss talks about too. You know, he's with us every day on the job and stuff, but you know, he understands, like, if we're like, hey, I'm going to a concert tonight, he's like, go. Like, I want you guys to enjoy your life. I want you guys to be able to have a life and not feel like you're just working 24/7. And, you know, that's one of the benefits of working for a small company. If you don't own your own business, sometimes that's better. You know, just that corporate life, sometimes they don't care about you. They don't care about your outside life. All they care about is what value you are bringing to them. And it can be very dangerous sometimes, and you can get yourself caught into a very bad trap, essentially. But, you know, one of the other things that you talked about too, and just enjoying the moment, and kind of going back to sometimes maybe when you forget to take the video, just taking that in. But, you know, there's been many times where you know, you get in the tree stand in the morning and you're sitting there and you're thinking, envisioning like, all right, this buck's, I know it comes in at this time, it's going to be walking in here. And then when it doesn't happen, sometimes you might get a little aggravated or whatever and just kind of forget why you're doing what you do. You get to enjoy being out there. And I mean, there's been many times where I've been out hunting and I've been sitting there and like envisioning, looking around and like praying for that buck to come in or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, the sun's coming up. And like you just kind of take a second. You're like, I am in, like you said, God's country of this beautiful like wilderness, and it is just so peaceful. It's very quiet, and it's just like it's so nice just to be out here. And sometimes you just have to take those little moments in.
Exactly, man. A lot worse scenarios you could be in. You could be under a bridge smoking crack, begging for money. You know what I'm saying? There's many different things that you could be doing, and instead you're in a tree stand or you're in a turkey blind, and you got a job. No one's life is perfect, but it could be worse. So
exactly,
that's my motivational Monday. And don't be lazy.
Yes,
that's my other thing. You ain't gonna kill big bucks if you're lazy.
Yeah, oh, that's 100%. I noticed that because 2 years ago I got a buck, and then last year I slacked on everything that I needed to do and didn't get a buck.
You're done, man. You get what you deserve.
Oh, you're 100% right. But that's all we got for today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. Thank you, Casey, for coming on. Where can people find and follow you on social media?
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. All my socials are all the same. It's NJ_Falconry. And I'm on Instagram. Facebook is like my personal / Falconry. And I'm trying to like grow my YouTube channel. I don't know. I feel like it's like the hardest thing to grow. I don't really go too crazy with it, but I just try to post like one, small video per day on there. So if you're a YouTube person, I have some longer videos. I have a couple good ones of, the story from start to finish of a bird being raised from a chick, hunting, catching tons of game, and then tragically dying in the various ways that these birds die, unfortunately. Because as I mentioned before, 70 to 80% of them die their first year, so they're bound to hit something. So all my socials are NJ_Falconry. And if you are interested in falconry, you could reach out to me. I can direct you. And yeah, man, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and post more on your social media, man. And you do a really good job, and you obviously put a lot of time and effort into it. And I'm going to blast you out as soon as we're done. And you tell me when the episode drops. And yeah, man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you and talking to you.
Yeah, I will put the links to all of his socials in the description if you want to go there or just search for him yourself. But that is all we have for today, other than a couple things. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, sign up for the newsletter. There is big things coming soon that you will not want to miss. But other than that, you guys know the deal. Until Friday, life is hard and it's going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out.